We back, boys! The Sakuga is back! And it's beautiful. I mean, I have been asking for fights to go dumb, stupid, crazy for like the past, what, 3 or 4 weeks at this point? And it hasn't happened up until now? You delivered, Shaft. I'm thankful for that. But it needed to be like this the entire season, you know? Like, we had the first three episodes. Beautiful, I love it. And we got this now. Beautiful, I love it. You just need to, like, you know, sprinkle out little bits throughout the entire season, and we would have been golden. We're still going because I love you, but still, man, you hold my heart a little bit. But you know, that faith that I had, it was waning a little bit. But you know what? I still kept faith. It was strong, and you know, I'm about to be rewarded for that faith, man. Cause next episode, the best day ever, Volume 2, Episode 1. Come on, man. It's food fight time. You don't use that name and then not give me some Sakuga level stunts. You don't use that name and then disrespect the legacy that food fight has, okay? It's the finale too. Like, if you gonna do it, we gonna do it right, okay? That's what I need. Whew. If you can't tell, I love this episode a lot. So let's just get into it, man. You know why not? So throughout this episode, we have a couple of fights going on here and there, and they're all great. Starting out with RWBY using her oversized gardening tool for its intended purposes, taking out Weiss's Nightmare Grim, and you know it's pretty cool because we've heard before in a previous episode that's like that Weiss, you know, said everything has its intended purpose, and Crescent Rose's gun barrel being on the other end, which we thought was just kind of like a little quirk that she didn't actually know how it worked, because Crescent Rose is such a mechanically unique weapon that she just, you know, didn't understand it. But in actuality, it was that it was to kind of seed a little hint for them to actually find the Nightmare Grim as to shoot behind her in the shadow. So that was pretty cool. And on top of that as well, they also beat the Nightmare Grim by RWBY activating her Silver Eyes for the first time, which is pretty interesting because it's like Ozpin now sees that. You know, like originally it didn't happen until the Fall of Beacon, but it did now. So maybe if we have more stuff, like he'll kind of not train her maybe, but start at least giving her little hints and stuff about what her eyes could actually be. And it is a bit weird, like a little bit weird as well, since usually Silver Eyes only activate to protect other people, but it was kind of used at a time when RWBY herself was in danger. But like, maybe you could supplement that for the fact of, hey, if they didn't win this time, then Weiss would have died. So it's like she did that to more preserve, you know, to preserve Weiss's life. But you know, so that's pretty much what I'm gonna go with. But yeah, with that, Weiss's nightmare was destroyed, and any beef they had is squashed, and they're perfectly good friends now. And then we also have Yang's fight with the giant Schnee mech. And you know, it's kind of funny, you can almost tell those two are sisters, because like on the first day of school you have RWBY trying to 1v1 a Nevermore, and then here you have Yang trying to 1v1 a giant robot. So it's just a little funny. But I love that we finally get a way to see her simulants in this version, and it looks so cool, and it almost reminds me of the newer volumes, kind of probably like 6 and up, you know, how her semblance looks there. It looks actually like her hair is on fire rather than just like in the earlier volumes when it was just more glowing. You know, it actually kind of plays into that whole dragon motif, which I like a lot more. And we get to see at least what I guess is how Yang actually uses those projectiles, you know, because she has shotguns on her arm, but we've seen her kind of throw out these kind of long range hits as well. And it was so cool because it was like they like expanded out and then they just like compressed back in, and I guess they just like used that force to kind of just like jut out a shot, fall enough or something. I don't know if it's satisfying, and it really doesn't matter because it was so cool. It was just like it was great, you know. And then another anime reference with the classic Akira slide after. So always love those. And you know, I love it so much. So after Yang destroys the mech, she does a sick Akira slide into what seems like it could be a core memory for Weiss. It's a little version of her and Nicholas Schnee having this conversation about what's important in life, and you know, he's telling her about all the time where he's went searching for dust mines, you know, to help the people of Atlas out in trying times, and how he's very much a man of the people, and how that's what makes him happy, and that, you know, even though they have this more safe life and what's been built up through the SDC and how people view them in Atlas entirely, that Weiss herself needs to go out into the world and find what's important to her, or find friends or other people to help build up her own, not necessarily her own version of an SDC, but her own version of what it more represents, something important, something to make a change in a positive light. You know, and I think that's pretty cool, because like we've heard time and time again, you know, how important Nicholas Schnee is to Weiss, and how it shapes her view of at least of what she thinks she should be doing as an heiress to the SDC. But you know, we've never seen a version of him alive so far. You know, it's always either been in portraits or what his armor is with the armor giggers. But you know, it's cool to actually sit there and listen to the kind of man that he was, and kind of actually see how it influences Weiss the way she is now. And it's touching too, because like hearing that and then watching RWBY proper, you know, you can see kind of almost one for one how it plays out for her, you know, knowing that she ended up finding those friends and finding her own path to being a huntress, and having that way to help out, and like Nicholas wanted her to, instead of just staying up in their kind of castle up in Atlas and just kind of conforming to whatever that the family or Atlas wanted her to be. So with Weiss's nightmare defeated and Weiss awake, the last thing they have to do before they can leave is to deal with Blake's nightmare. And this leads to one of, if not the best fights in Ice Queendom. I mean, unless what we get in the finale is like off the walls amazing, this to me is definitely the best we'll get. And you know why it is? It's because the crazy amount of Sakuga. But aside from that, it's the fact that they just jumped the mess out of Negative Blake. I mean, they just straight dog her. And it's great. I mean, because like, in a lot of animes, whenever they're fighting their main villain or whatever, they always just shoot the ones. It's like, you are dealing with a life or death situation. There's like 7 of y'all there. You don't have to do that. And they don't. Because like so many of the little team attacks and combos, and they're playing off and they're just like playing off of one another, you wouldn't be able to do that if they just fought them one-on-one. And I'm so happy they didn't, because oh my god, it was beautiful. But aside from the fight itself, we've also just got like a little sentimental moment with Blake as well, with her getting the finishing version on her nightmare self, you know, kind of fully severing ties and closing off that chapter of herself that was once with the White Fang and once believed in all those hateful things, or just went along with them, and any ties she had to Adam, those were all just kind of her finishing those off. And along with that, you know, we also got to see what I suspect would be, you know, Blake's whole, we saw Weiss's, which was on the stage, so I would assume that Order White Fang logo, the peaceful one, that was almost at the center of the Nightmare Grim, I would assume that would have been Blake's heart as well. But you know, I do wish we had like a better fight with Blake's nightmare just overall, cause like them running up to it and kind of just like fighting all the vines and stuff, that was cool. So I wish we had a little bit more of that. But I'm happy with what we did get, so I'm not too mad about that. But two aspects of that will just remind me of other parts in RWBY proper. You know, it's like when they were kind of like when we had that front face of them all fighting, it reminded me of that little sequence in the Volume 7 opening. Except it was kind of just like, you know, a longer and more developed version of that. And then when they were all shooting at Blake's Nightmare as well, that was more of kind of like a callback to when they were all shooting on the Nevermore and Players in Pieces too, which, again, that was cool. And I really liked the animation of that one too. Like, it was different, but it flowed. It kind of flowed smooth. It kind of flowed smoother too. So that was, you know, so that was cool. And I love this episode so much. Did so many things right. I'm so happy it did. And that's pretty much it, you know. I really like this episode a lot. Like I said, we've got some good action, some good story beats, you know. And they've capped off the nightmare in a pretty satisfying way. Because like I said, I figured it would end in this episode, but I just never figured that we would be moving on to the food fight for our finale. But hey, like, if they're willing to start Volume 2, maybe they'll be willing to, you know, like, sprinkle a little bit of something for another season in there or not. You know, a little bit of hints, maybe see, like, Cinder and them come into Beacon. I don't know. I'll be looking forward to it, hopefully. But I'll see you in the next episode for our final episode. Peace.